Hey, so you're starting off a new worm bin. That's fantastic. I'm hoping this video can help you out, get rid of some of the bad things in the beginning. Nothing worse than putting a bunch of worms in a box and they all kind of dwindle down to nothing. Well, I'm going to show you how I put together my worm bins in a healthy environment so that you'll have healthy worms, great castings, and enjoyable time. Hi, folks. I'm Jim with Cedar Song Farm. I raise organic vegetables, honeybees, hence the honeybee brood box I'm sitting on because it was the closest thing I could find, and earthworms. This video here today is about how you can go about setting up or refreshing an earthworm bin to get the best quality earthworms and castings later on. I've been involved with worms for a long time. I've spent a lot of time in a lot of different states in the United States and all over the country, but I've always had earthworms in one way, shape, form, or another. Well, being transferred while in the military, you sometimes have to figure out what you're not going to take with you. It was always easy to give away earthworms, believe it or not. A lot of people do it. So I have restarted and made new bins quite a few times in my lifetime, and I found a couple of things that work for me, and hopefully that they'll work for you. I've seen the good, I've seen the bad, I've seen the ugly. I hope what I show you today helps to keep you from ever having to go through that ugly. So what we're going to do is we're going to put together what I affectionately named Mobi, which is a 55-gallon drum cut in half, fused together. And we're going to go ahead and use the process that I do to fill this up to make it acceptable for the worms and something that the worms are going to be able to build on down the road. Now, I will say this right from the beginning. This is a how I do, not how you should do. And now I hope what you can do is kind of get some stuff out of this and work with what you have to simulate the same thing, because I really know it's going to help you out in the long run. Let's get started. Hey folks, let me introduce you to Mobi. Mobi is a 55-gallon drum split in half, fused together, and it is going to be the new bin here in the wormery. And we'll have Mobi here and a couple other guys over here. Let me tell you why Mobi's coming into existence. I've got 18 bins right now that I purchased back in February. Well, I didn't purchase 18, I purchased 5 pounds of red wigglers. And in 11 months, I've got 18, something like that, 18 bins. And now I'm going to split them all up again, but instead of putting them in their own separate concrete mixing tub bins, or the other two, the longer bins behind me, we're going to put them into Mobi. And I'm going to show you today how I'm going to go about doing that. All right, let's go ahead and put this puppy together. What I've got down here, these are some old overs from a sifting of castings that I recently did. They're pretty dry. What I've got here is bark. And this is going to go on the bottom. And the reason why I put the bark in there is to add the fungi that the worms would naturally encounter in their world. And the bacteria in the castings is going to jump on that really quick to help to break it down. The other reason why I like to use bark, kind of a weird thing, but I think when the worms are casting off their cocoons, they like to have something they can rub on. I don't know, I could be totally wrong, but you know what? If I'm right, I'm doing a good job. The next thing is the biochar. Now, I love adding biochar to my worm castings. I mean, the biochar itself, if you're not familiar with it, maybe actually pretty soon I am going to do a video on biochar and its benefits for the worms and for your castings. But basically, think of them as little hotels for all that bacteria to live in. Now, some of these pieces are pretty good size, and what that does, and actually, because these contain air inside all the little pockets inside of them, again, I'm not going to go into the science of it, but trust me, Google it, it's there. I do make that biochar myself. Now we've got you've seen this before in other videos, my dried sifted cow manure. All the gunky stuff is taken out of it. It's basically just what the cows had eaten, the grasses. Outstanding for the garden. It just adds the tilth, the structure to the soil, and the worms love it. Talking to the folks at the farm where I get it, and they were blown away knowing that. And I was talking to them about vermicast, vermiculture, what this can do to help keep stuff out of the landfill and make for better soil naturally. And they're pretty interested. I'm not going to put a lot in here. Even though it has gone through a thermophilic composting stage, it still could heat up. The biochar will help to stop that from happening, but everything else we're going to do to this is going to help to make it want to heat up. Now, let me tell you about the elephant in the room here. This is a log that I just got done doing cordwood for the house here. And this is a log that was just too pulpy. Been sitting in the ground, so all of this down here, the worms and the bacteria are going to love that. All right, speaking of water, were we speaking of water? I don't know. Let's add some water to this. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, I use this pump sprayer for doing a lot of in fact, this water in here has been made into a very light worm casting tea. So I'm not only adding water, I'm adding the bacteria from the worm casting tea, which is going to help all of this except the worms, make for a very hospitable place for the worms when I add them. Now I am going to let this sit for at least 24 hours. I would wait longer when starting a new bin if I were just using cardboard, paper, peat moss, coconut coir, whatever. But because of the castings that I added, the biochar that's already been inoculated, somewhat, the cow manure, the bacteria levels in here are going to increase very, very rapidly. Now that doesn't look real hospitable to a worm right now, but I'm going to add cardboard that I did up in my fantastic tri-cut or whatever they call it, paper shredder my wife got me for Christmas. Thank you, dear. And we're going to add that as another layer. Okay, I talk about in my videos me being a worm chef. Well, this is a lasagna. And we're going to add that. I really like the way that crosscut shredder does it. Instead of just putting it in little strips that can compact down, they're kind of curled, especially the cardboard. And I think that'll help to keep more air, and less compaction in the bin. Oops, sorry about that. And again, this is a worm casting tea sprayer. Oh, I was talking about why my sprayer doesn't work half the time, probably because of all the little worm castings that end up making it through the filter and through the pump and then clog up my tube here. Now, I know I'm not adding a lot of water right now, but I'm going to add more as I watch this grow here. And then the final thing, if you know me, seen any of my other videos, I love adding leaves. Now, these here aren't chipped up that well, and that's fine. But down towards the bottom, they are a little bit more chipped up. And these are oak leaves, maple leaves, pine leaves, grass, whatever came off of someone's lawn. No, I don't go places where they spread the fertilizers and all that on their lawns. Most of these came right from my own backyard. When my wife lets me take them. She doesn't usually do that. And we'll spray them down too. It's funny, see how it's working now? I think that little clog that was in the sprayer here got sprayed out. So what we've done today is basically reenacted or simulated what the worms are going to find in the ground. They're going to find some dirt. They're going to find something to eat. And they're going to find a place where they can feel comfortable and carry out what they do. If I were a worm, I wouldn't mind living in there. Now this is going to need more water, but we're going to let this sit here for a bit. And then we're going to add more. And like I said, we're going to take 24 hours letting that sit there, let the bioactivity begin. But what we started off with was some old overage castings that I had sifted on the bottom, bark to add the fungi to the mixture here. The common order. Now, you know, folks, again, I go overboard. I really do. If you don't have all of this, you don't need all of this. But something I would suggest is try to make it as natural as possible. You know, if all you've got is cardboard and paper and water, okay, go for it. But I think by doing it the way that I've done it is how I went from, well, 5 pounds of worms to probably 30 in less than a year. Not bragging, I'm just saying. I think what I'm doing is working, and I like to say that. And if I can help any of y'all out to do the same thing, I'm happy to do it. There will be more on this in 24 hours, but to you it's going to be like in a heartbeat, or a couple seconds anyway. Thanks for watching so far.